Hello, my name is Giovanni Conseco. Today I'll be talking about the best off-roading rig that I could possibly get, or the one that I'm thinking on buying. So to first off, the cars that I selected were the Toyota 4Runner, Toyota Tacoma, as well as the Jeep Rubicon. Um, I picked these because they are the most well-known and the most reliable amongst all off-roading machines, and the most common as well. I didn't want to bring up a name that no one has mentioned before or that no one knows about. So these three are best fit because they also are really good at off-roading once they're all modified and everything. Um, and they'll all be tested through criterias that I have written and evaluated to determine which one is the best off-roading machine. The first criteria would have to be whether I'd like it to be four-wheel drive or two-wheel drive. Because as an off-roading machine or as an off-roading car, you'd want to know whether, say, you're stuck in a situation or in a pit or something, you want to know whether you're able to get out or not, whether a four-wheel drive can do that or whether a two-wheel drive can do that. And then the second criteria, or the second category of criteria, would have to be whether it's a truck or SUV pick, due to its storage. I'll be testing this through its storage, because I'd also like to camp, and in order to camp and carry out all the equipment that you like, you have to have storage for all your equipment and camping necessities. And the third one was reliability, whether it's gonna last me X amount of years and not break down on me whenever I need it to take out to go camping or off-roading. The fourth one is the cost of the actual car, whether it be X amount or real expensive. We're evaluating the expense of the car itself. And the final criteria would have to be the cost of modification, knowing how much it costs to or evaluating how much it costs to modify these cars, to make them even a better machine, to make them better off-roading and performance-wise. And so these are the criteria points. Each car that excels or passes the other cars receives a point, and at the end, these points are tallied, and the car with the most points is deemed the winner, and the car that should be bought or should be viewed as. And so for the first criteria, whether it's a two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, it's known that four-wheel drive cars are better off-roading than any two-wheel drive car, and so this point is given to all three, due to the fact that any four-wheel drive will overbeat or overcome a two-wheel drive performance. And so I made sure I did my research and watched videos on the differences between a four-wheel drive and a two-wheel drive. And then for an off-roading machine or an off-roading needs and camping needs, a four-wheel drive is much better. Say you're stuck, you'll be able to get unstuck with a four-wheel drive, or more likely to get unstuck with a four-wheel drive rather than a two-wheel drive. And for the second criteria, which was truck or SUV, I researched and found out the square footage of the 4Runner, as well as the Tacoma, as well as the Rubicon, and it turned out that the Jeep had the most square footage out of the three cars, due to the fact that it has a bed, and in that bed you can fit much more stuff than the 4Runner and the Rubicon. Not only can you add more stuff, but you can also add a camper or some legs on top of that to add more storage above and more storage on the bed, rather than in the 4Runner and having seats in the back, as well as the Rubicon. It was the Tacoma had the most storage. It was roughly 128 cubic feet, and the Forerunner and the Rubicon were much less than that, because they also have seats in the back. And for the third criteria, it was whether it was reliable or not. And Toyota is very known to be reliable, and so Tacoma and the Forerunner won both of these. It was essentially a battle between the Toyota and the Forerunner, because the Forerunner, due to my research, it was said to last around 300,000 miles. As for the Tacoma, there have been many studies and many cars that have seen 400,000 miles in the odometer, and that just shows how much more the Tacoma can run than the Rubicon or the Forerunner. And so the point goes to the Tacoma because of its reliability, and this makes me know that that this car will be more reliable, have more storage, and just would last me more than 400,000 miles, or roughly around that range. And the fourth criteria was the cost of the car. The car that won this, or the criteria, the car that won this criteria point was the Tacoma as well, because its stock off-roading car was around $34,000. As for the Forerunner, it's a little more pricey, and the Rubicon as well. And for it to be the stock four-wheel drive off-roading, the Tacoma is where it's at, because it won the point as for being the cheapest. And the fourth criteria was the cost of modifications. I did my research, I evaluated this, and I noted that Rubicon is the cheapest, as you don't have to add any solid axles to the whole framework or the whole mechanism of its car, because its stock self comes much stronger than a stock Tacoma or a stock Forerunner. And for the cost of modification isn't as much. And so my final recommendation would have to be to go for the Tacoma, because it won the most points. It won its first criteria point, the second criteria point, third criteria point, and the fourth criteria point. It won 4 total points, and that's much more than the Forerunner and the Rubicon. And I'd say the Tacoma is deemed to be winner because of all these points and evaluations that we made that made it its winner.